Worry lines can run deep. With increasing commodity prices, higher price volatility, and rising input costs, America's farmers rely on crop insurance to protect their crops and livestock. Crop insurance, providing peace of mind now and for the next generation of agriculture.
Congresswoman Michelle Lujan Grisham from New Mexico's 1st District, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm really delighted to do this interview.
Well, just for starters, can we get a little bit of a background on the district that you represent?
Sure. So it's New Mexico's 1st District, and I have the most urban district in the entire state because it's Albuquerque is the big city, which is the center of the state. But my district also includes very rural communities all the way around Albuquerque. And so I've got rural communities in Torrance County, Valencia County, and Sandoval County. Very diverse. We've got a lot of agriculture in that in Albuquerque and its surrounding communities. But I've got a large urban center area as well to represent.
Mm-hmm. And with that large diversity within your own district, being placed on the Ag Committee in the House of Representatives, what were some of your priorities for that committee work?
Well, I'm going to challenge you a little just in the question about being placed on that committee, and I really work hard in my district. I've fought to get on that committee. I'm the first member of Congress from New Mexico to ever be on the Agricultural Committee. And what I love about the Ag Committee is that the diversity of the issues that they've got jurisdiction over, and that they also, in the same committee, influence, of course, the appropriations as part of that farm bill. Mm-hmm. And in New Mexico, it does everything from food safety and nutrition to rural economic development. And that diversity with the opportunity to represent and engage my agricultural stakeholders, my livestock folks, and my farmers was an incredible, meaningful opportunity for me.
And right now, certainly the hot button issue within that Agriculture Committee is the Farm Bill and the progress that it's making. What were some of your priorities for that piece of legislation?
Well, I mean, clearly I was one of the members on that committee who's very concerned about the cuts to the SNAP, or the stamp food benefit program as it was formerly known. It's a $20.5 billion cut. And just this week we learned that New Mexico's got the highest food insecurity rates in the country for children. And so that's a significant issue for me to address. But I also got an amendment into the Farm Bill that protects the grants and the investments for wastewater infrastructure. And with those rural communities that I talked about, and the state that doesn't have sufficient water and conservation, and making sure that we're environmentally safe and our public health investments are sound, I was really proud to get that amendment in, and that economic development is really important for my district.
Also serving on budget oversight and government reform committees, what differences have you seen between that committee work and the work that you've done within agriculture?
Well, a couple of things. One, the Agricultural Committee is a much more, I think, bipartisan committee, even though, we didn't win on restoring the cuts to SNAP, and several other amendments offered by many Democrats were not adopted. Several amendments proposed by Republicans were equally not adopted, and we had, I thought, a very engaging conversation that was less like a debate and more about trying to balance the factual impressions and realities that are unique to each member's district. One of the great things in the Farm Bill is the holding firm on the Dairy Security Act provisions, and in a state that's got some of the largest dairy farms in the country. These are really important issues for New Mexico. So I really enjoyed that. My Budget Committee and my Oversight Committee aren't nearly as bipartisan. And their roles are quite different. We've got a philosophical divide in the House about what kind of budget policy we want. And that plays itself out in that committee all the time. And in Oversight, looking at different perspectives about the role of government and the size of government. And you see those philosophical issues play themselves out in that committee as well.
Being this is your first term within Congress, what has really surprised you the most?
Honestly, how nice the members are and their staffs. You come off a campaign and you're competing every moment of every day. Right. You got to win. You're strategic for every second. Mm-hmm. And here, and I certainly I understand there's a theme of being competitive here because that seniority and where you're placed, and your efforts make a difference to your district. But here, on both sides of the aisle, I see a genuine effort, particularly for the freshmen, to engage with you and to create a relationship so that you don't make mistakes, that you have real opportunities. People will call me up and say, a bill is coming. I know that this is an issue that's important to you. I'd love you to come to my office. There's a whole mentoring and shepherding that occurs. And that really surprised me, particularly today when I think there's a sense that, because it's unfortunately to a high degree still true, that we're so partisan, that we're hostile. And I'm seeing those hostilities dissipate. And I'm really optimistic about the friendly environment in the House today.
And finally, Congresswoman, can you just give us a little bit of a background on yourself and what really made you want to run for Congress?
Well, the initial issue, I'll do the second question first. You know, I was really interested, and still am, in healthcare. We're not going to get to a budget that makes sense for this country until we do something about bending the healthcare cost curve. I certainly don't want to do that by limiting benefits and limiting access, and we're going to have to continue to improve the quality. And in a rural frontier state where access to those basic services are really hard, I'm very interested, and I've got a 30-year background in healthcare. And in the Ag Committee, that's another place to start dealing with obesity and nutrition issues as they relate to chronic health care. So I'm really, as you can tell, excited about that committee. So that drove me to want to do federal policy, because I've been doing that work at the state. But I am the very first native New Mexican woman to ever get, Hispanic woman, to ever be in a elected federal position. My family's been in New Mexico for 400 years. I have a picture right here in my office that's got my great-grandfather with President Taft signing the legislation making New Mexico a state. So those rich investments and traditions mean a lot to me. And the cultural value and protections, you know, they were all ranchers and farmers. I mean, that is the backbone and the fabric of New Mexico, and it has certainly led me to engage in public policy for the last 30 years. But I'm a lawyer and a small business owner, and I was a cabinet secretary for 3 different governors, bipartisan.
And how has that experience, you know, working for such a long time within New Mexico, how has that helped as you step up to the federal level?
Because I really understand how the bureaucracies work, and sometimes don't work. And I recognize their challenges, and I know what it means to really have predictability in your appropriations so that you can create those investments at the local level and then do the oversight and the promulgation of those rules. And lastly, I lived that life that the constituents that I served lived. And if you walk in those shoes, both from providing the service, I'm a primary caregiver for my mother who's chronically ill, who both depends on me for her core health and social support, but also depends on me for her financial support. And so it's never lost on me the importance of those investments in our families in this country. And I think that all of those experiences make me an effective Congresswoman, because I don't forget what it means to make a difference for the people that I serve.
Congresswoman Michelle Lujan Grisham from New Mexico's 1st District, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.